Episode number 853, 6 Degrees of Separation.
You're listening to the official BNI podcast with BNI founder and Chief Visionary Officer, Dr. Ivan Misner. Stay tuned for networking and referral marketing tips from the man who's been called the father of modern networking, along with suggestions and insights into getting the most from your membership in the world's largest networking organization, BNI.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the official BNI podcast. I'm Priscilla Rice, and I'm coming to you from Live Oak Recording Studio in Berkeley, California, and I'm joined on the phone today by the founder and the Chief Visionary Officer of BNI, Dr. Ivan Misner. Hello, Ivan. How are you, and where are you?
Well, I am actually on my way to Los Angeles to do an event down in Orange County to speak to some directors down in Orange County this week.
Oh, great. And who do you have on board with us today?
Well, we have a guest, Mike Macedonio. Mike is a New York Times bestselling author, a speaker, a future astronaut with Virgin Galactic. He and I are both in that program. He's executive director for BNI in the San Francisco Bay Area, and in this role, he helps thousands of local business owners build their business through the BNI program. And he's been part of BNI for 27 years now. Something that a lot of people don't know about Mike, other than the fact that he's been on BNI podcasts 5 times now. Episode 187, 188, 381, 530, and 603. Besides that, and even I didn't know some of these things, he was switched at birth. Mike, I got, not on the podcast, but off podcast, you got to tell me that story. Struck by lightning and bitten in the face by a Bengal tiger. The tiger actually doesn't surprise me because I know a little bit about some of your interests, but I didn't know you were bitten in the face. Mike Macedonio, welcome to BNI Podcast again.
Oh, thank you, Ivan. And yes, they're all true, by the way. I was switched at birth, struck by lightning, and bitten in the face by a Bengal tiger. Here's something you may not know, Ivan. I was bitten in the face by a Bengal tiger during a BNI meeting.
Okay, I didn't know it was during a BNI meeting.
Yeah, it was a Zoom meeting, and I was caring for a cub that had been rescued, and I thought people on a Zoom meeting would like to see a cub. I picked it up. Tigers do not like to be picked up, so he gave me a little snip on the cheek. I didn't even recognize it, but my wife, Dawn, was telling me to wipe the blood.
All right, well, that's a first. There have been a lot of things that have happened at BNI meetings, but I didn't know of anybody being bitten on the face by a tiger during a BNI meeting, so that's unique. Hey, you wanted to talk about 6 degrees of separation, and I love this topic, and it's a myth. So tell me, why is this a topic of interest to you, Mike?
Well, starting with your book, The 29% Solution, when you revealed that it is a myth, and maybe you can tell us a little bit about the study that was done by Milgram and why you classify this as a myth.
Yeah, so I did the 29% solution because I was going to write an article on the 6 degrees of separation, how we're all separated by everyone else in the world by 6 degrees. And as I did a deep dive in the research, I found out that it was just absolutely not true. That Milgram had done this study of several hundred people where they had to get a packet of material from someone in the Midwest in the US to a stockbroker in Boston. And he discovered that it did, in fact, take about 6 steps to get from the people in the Midwest to the person in Boston. Now, this is before Monsieur Google, where you could just look anybody up and figure out where they're at. This was done back in the 60s. And it did take 6 steps. The problem was only 29% of the participants ever got it through to the person that it was supposed to go to. 71% never found the person. So the media picked up on this idea of 6 degrees of separation, and they said we're all separated by 6 degrees, when in fact, it's just not true. Only less than a third of the people in the survey were separated by 6 degrees. Other people, could never find the person. So my idea with the 29% solution book was how do you become part of the 29%? How do you become one of the people that Milgram found was connected to others by 6 degrees or 6 steps?
And, when we hear that, there's things, oh no, we're not all connected by 6 degrees. And like you said, there can be a plan to be part of the 29%. What I found interesting in the study that Milgram had done was there's some information in there about the connectors that made it successful. And in short, what he found was when the packets were going from Omaha, Nebraska to Sharon, Massachusetts, or Boston, depending on if it was his home or his business, that not all degrees of separation are equal. And I thought that was kind of fascinating, that even when the thing did succeed, he found some asymmetrical patterns. Now, this is interesting. 24 of the letters reached the stockbroker's home in Sharon, Mass. Of those 24, 16 came from the same person, a clothing merchant. Interesting. So 16 out of 20 came through the same person. The balance of the letters that went to his office in Boston, the majority of those came to 2 other men. Okay, so all in all, half of the responses that came back to the stockbroker were delivered to him by the same 3 people. And that's when he talks about not all degrees are equal.
Yeah.
And when I think about that, it's like, you're right. Okay, getting connected and being connected happens to those special few. Okay, they're known as the connectors. And we see that in networks like BNI. We see that in social networks. There are certain people that tend to be the connectors of their networks and bring people in.
Yeah, listen, you bring up a good point, and I really didn't talk about that in the book. I was aware of it. Just a handful of people were the ones that actually got the packet to the individual, and they are connectors, and that's what we can be in BNI, is we can become those kinds of connectors.
Yeah. And when I look at that, I say, okay, so how do I use that? How do I use this concept of the special few and the connectors? And certainly the 29% solution gives you a week by week way of how you can be that. Right? And ultimately, what we want to do is we want to be a connector. Okay, we want to be a connector, and we want to be connected to connectors. And again, we look at the BNI. How am I a connector? Well, when I bring a visitor, I'm connecting people I know to people I know. When I bring people into the network and sponsor them, okay, I'm being a connector. And I can also look, particularly with all of BNI's tracking, it gives me all the information I need to be able to research, well, who are the other connectors? Who are the other people bringing people to the table and visitors and sponsorship? So
how can we inspire more connectors in BNI?
That's a great question. I think it starts with awareness. I think with this conversation you're having right now, that 29% of the people are the special few, and the other 71 can't find their way around.
Yeah, they can't find their car keys.
Yeah. Yeah. I think starting the awareness in this conversation is a great way. And then the second way is, well, how do I do it? How do I introduce those people? What do I say? And I think one of the biggest things we can do inside of BNI is recognize people for doing it. Make a real big deal when people can successfully bring visitors, or if they ultimately sponsor someone inside of BNI. They've just brought an opportunity for any one of the people in their networks to have a tremendous relationship and referral source.
Yeah. I think that recognition of bringing somebody in is important. There are 2 levers that we can pull in BNI that increase retention. One is attendance at the member success program training, and the other is a new member sponsoring another new member. And it was that second one that really confused me when I saw the data. But the more I thought about it, the more it made sense that if you bring in a friend, you don't want to leave because you've got a friend that you have brought in. And so it's really important, I think, for us to recognize those individuals who, particularly within their first year, sponsor someone into BNI, because the chances of them staying, the sponsor staying for a second, third, or fourth year goes up dramatically.
Yeah. And so what you have there is you have someone staying longer. So that's a referral source established in the chapter. You have somebody else they brought in, and you've also shown them how to be a connector.
Yeah.
Well, now that they've done it once, doing it again is probably going to happen again and again and again.
Yeah, excellent. Well, what else? Any other thoughts or ideas about 6 degrees and the 29% solution?
The one thing I would put out there to anyone that's listening to this topic is, evaluate yourself. Are you a connector? Okay. And if so, how are you connecting? Who are you connecting? Are you connected to connectors? And then finally, ask yourself, how can I be a better connector? How can I be one of those special few in the 6 degrees of separation and become a phenomenal connector?
Yeah, great suggestions. And for anyone who's interested in the book, The 29% Solution, it is still available. It's out of print, but I think it's out of print. It might still be available, but it's definitely available on audiobook and on Kindle. And there's some great content there. The 52 Weekly Networking Success Strategies is the subtitle of the book. And I invite you to go check it out. We'll make sure and put a link in here. Any last thought, Mike, before we wrap up?
No, I can't recommend that book enough. I think it's a great way to be part of the 6 degrees of separation, or the 29% solution. The second book I would also recommend is The Tipping Point. The Tipping Point also gets into the conversation of the 6 degrees of separation.
Yeah. And there's probably another book that you'd recommend, and we're going to talk about that next week, called The World's Best Known Marketing Secret.
Absolutely.
All right, Mike, thanks for being on BNI Podcast yet once again.
Privilege.
Over to you, Priscilla.
Okay. Well, I think that's it for this week. Thank you so much for the great information. This podcast is sponsored by MeisnerAudioPrograms.com. These audio programs will provide you with the tools and the inspiration to powerfully enhance your BNI experience. So check out the great material available to you at MeisnerAudioPrograms.com, and then use the promo code IVAN50 for 50% off of everything. All of the proceeds go to the BNI Foundation. Thank you so much for listening. This is Priscilla Rice, and we look forward to having you join us again next week for another exciting episode of the official BNI Podcast.